according to the time allocated. For example, for example, it's 40 minutes. Then for myself,
So Sean is all right.
he can talk. He can take my session as well, no problem. Amazing.
So 40 minutes is
If he finish earlier than
If you
that,
don't,
and then followed by myself here for
how are you? How to pronounce your name?
New Yen Wan.
The first name.
I'll call me Roland, I do no problem.
New?
just address him, Roland will do. I think that will be easy, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I think this guy is.
Nice to meet you. Yes, I heard about your name yesterday. Yes.
Our company. Abdul Rahman.
Nice to meet you. Ratna.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Right, okay, so everyone are okay, right. My question is, we have to finish at 3:50 or we don't finish 3:40?
We're going to, for this session, we will finish at 3:50. And this is an empty slot, we won't do anything. And
We're gonna use for
yes. So what happens is that for the question and answer, we will allocate the time according to this session given. So say that I won't have 40 minutes.
But you really speak 40 minutes.
But actually, I told Dr. Ong, I said about 25 minutes will be enough. 25.
Then.
But she said, don't worry, take your time. I said, I don't know. I said, no, because we have the time slot for you. Oh my God.
Okay, so question and answer after that?
But I think I can about 30 minutes.
In the slot.
But after experience of question and answer. After this. After
What is that?
If the time is for me, you can say, Mr. Dawar, 40 minutes, then it's not clearly.
No. Okay. So when is your price for this time? The end of the 40 minutes?
Actually, my preference is always end of my presentation. If I speak right in front, then everybody will start leaving the room.
That's all, right? Just mention Malaysia Rubbercon
Any title? Or the Roland or without title is okay for me. No problem. Just Roland is okay. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Okay. So I am a researcher in Malaysian Rubbercon.
So, you?
You? Yeah. Okay. Researcher. Senior researcher.
I'm the company here as the timekeeper.
Oh, you work at the.
Yeah, I will, I will accompany
Yeah.
you.
You'll be your wingman for the day. I haven't seen this.
This is the only conference where no one is interested in much.
Be sure you can stay with him. Yes.
Yeah, they might be still busy with the lunch, rushing over now.
So we have to start the late.
Don't worry, let them finish the lunch.
We should start
So I
now.
will put them to nice warm sleep.
Oh, you are the timekeeper, huh? I don't count the time.
Basically, I will keep one with me for 5 minutes. The second one is twice for 1 minute. So it's patient.
Three speakers.
Maybe this is not necessary.
adults as a student, I know what it means, I know. It's So I sit here, okay.
Oh, you see, I see, you see that.
You want to use the computer?
So as an introduction, we can remind speakers that one ring will be
Oh, okay.
finding that, one ring that, and twice. Let's say the speakers complete exactly our 40 minutes, so that's if they say
Online.
My name is Robbie. Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Yes, thank you. Yes, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
So you made the decision as a second chef. All right, I think everything is okay, in order.
You must have water.
Oh yes, you get the water.
Yes, reconditioning of the factory has begun. Next year, the carousel needs to start about 16,000.
This is my voice, but I'm running out of business time. So kind of you.
I will definitely keep you in mind and everyone.
Yeah, I will set it up. Yes.
I thought we could discuss afterwards.
Sure, sure.
He's trained for 2 days, not 2 days.
40 minutes, yes.
Right, so I just roughly go here. Dah pilih nak air dah? Bagi dulu. Bagi dulu.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, thank you. Mr. Tong, say bao fan leh. Oh,
I like your work time.
huh? Put on the bow tie as well. You can always do that and look better than me.
The both of them fit everybody.
Hey, you look like
yogurt.
No.
You need some personality.
I was wearing this tie yesterday because I forgot to bring my tie.
Actually, the fact that that bow tie because they were bow ties.
I haven't used Shelly, I haven't used it before.
You just go around the neck.
Why is it
Then there's a hook on it.
Plastic bag.
Okay, lah. This one is a little bit of go. Right? Yeah.
Is it expensive? Of course, give it quality. More expensive than I
No.
Depends on what price.
They don't go and buy that cost this $400.
I don't know from someone.
20, 30 minutes.
Can you please take a seat? Thank you.
You start talking and we go.
Okay, welcome everyone to this afternoon session. I think it's should be one of the most expected session because we are speaking about rubber pricing. Maybe we should share more the world and push people to come here because this is where we disclose what the future of this business will be. My name is Salvatore Pinizzotto. I am the Secretary General at the International Rubber Study Group. And I am pleased to chair this session with three great speakers, and of which the first one is our keynote speaker, and is also a friend of mine. So I'm very pleased to introduce him. It's Mr. Da Wong. He works with Ala Advisor Limited, and he will speak about an overview on global commodity rubber. Just one organizational note. We are going to have a Q&A session after each presentation, so be prepared with some interesting questions, and Dar is the right person to disclose any information about the rubber market and rubber prices trend. So Dar, I think it's your time. The floor is yours. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my old friend Salvatore. So I'm supposed to stand behind the rostrum, which I usually don't do that. It's quite awkward. I like to walk around. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All the old friends we have not seen for more than 2 years. Okay, my name is Da Wong from Singapore. And when I walked in just now, I was telling myself, said, wow, how unpopular we are. Because the crowd is like, not many. Then chairman said, don't worry, as you speak, people will start to come in as usual. I say, all right, let's hope that will happen. Okay, today my topic is going to cover on a global overview on commodities, and of course, most importantly, a forecast on the rubber price trend, which I have been doing that since 2011, okay, in Global Rubber Conference. Then I remember for the last 10 years, every year, all right, I am not bragging, but I'm proud to say every year for the last 10 years, my prices have been accurate in the forecast, okay? So every year since 2011, every year I would say that the rubber prices are going down, it's softening, the demand is warning. Sometimes people are not so happy with me. But in 2017, 2018, I said the rubber prices at that time, they are starting to recover. People started to ask me, are you sure? And in fact, it did recover, but it comes down again. So today we're going to do that at the end of the presentation. Okay, 40 minutes, but I'll try to finish within 30 minutes. All right. 4 topics today we're going to cover. Okay, number 1, changing to a new world. We are moving to a new world. A lot of people are still very oblivious to it. All right, why are we moving to a new world? We're going to talk about it. And the rate hike, which is now we are on the path of very fierce rate hike, starting from US, also Europe, all right, which they've been keeping 0 rate for many years since 2013, and now they're starting to hike the rate. Even Malaysia's Bank Negara as well, including Singapore. So how would it affect the whole world and a commodity like rubber? Okay, and how does it affect also the S&P 500, which is the main market benchmark in US that marks the world? And of course, last but not least, the forecast on rubber prices. All right, first of all, when we talk about changing to a new world, since when this so-called new world, see, I use the green tagline because I always suppose the new world is a better world. All right, no doubt some people, they don't agree. They say we are in a world of mess now. mess? I said, because the mess is caused by someone. Okay, but we are still in a good new world. All right, since 2018, the world has encountered the following. Number one, US-China trade war, as we know, all right, erupted and initiated by Trump, okay, causing a lot of problem. Then after that, US was trying very hard to sow discord on the international media on China's Xinjiang cotton fallacy, saying it's a breach of human rights, all this, trying to bring down Chinese economy, but they didn't succeed, all right, because China has done many ways to prove the fact that the Xinjiang people are growing in terms of population, and the only way that can achieve that over the last 20 years is through peace and through proper employment. Then after that, Hong Kong start to have a lot of problems and fall apart from anti-democracy since 2019, okay, just before the COVID started. So all these are very related to China, if you realize. Then until recently, we have the Taiwan Straits going into some tension again because of US Pelosi did a unwarranted visit to Taiwan. All right. Then, of course, on the Western side, we have the Ukraine crisis. All right, that the military warfare between Ukraine and Russia. And of course, we all know today, okay, it's no more a surprise that why this thing happened and why Russia had got no choice but to start the military action is because of some political issues being erupted by US on the NATO by invading Ukraine. Okay, the distance between Ukraine and Russia is just like Singapore and JB. Okay, just across the bridge. In fact, just walking distance between Ukraine on the border. So if you imagine if Ukraine becomes a member of the NATO and start to put all the THAAD system on the missile, aiming, okay, at the Kremlin government in Russia, that would be a big problem. That is the reason why Russia has got no choice, okay, but to start the war. Okay, we are very neutral. We are not here to say who is right or wrong, but that's the fact. Then, when the East and the West are going into chaos, all right, global inflation also got erupted starting from this year. And the reason is because US has ended their zero policy or low interest rate near to zero policy and started to increase the rate very, very rapidly, very scarily. Okay, since January until now, they have increased the interest rate for 5 times. Okay, from 0 all the way to now 2.5%. And where is it going to head to? More to come. Okay, this month, September 26th, there will be another FOMC meeting. We call the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, which we are very sure that the US is going to increase the rate again. It won't be a 0.25%, it could be another 0.5 or 0.75%. Then first week of November, there'll be another FOMC. Then the mid-December, another FOMC, there'll be 3 more. So these 3 rounds of meetings effectively could bring up the interest rate from the current 2.5% up to 4 or 4.5, which is very high. So if you just imagine, if you have been paying your loan, mortgage repayment, or your housing repayment, car repayment, okay, over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, no one could cushion suddenly your interest rates on your borrowing costs rising from 0 to 4% or even higher, which eventually is going to bring a collapse in all the asset prices. Japan is already now going through this because Japan currency has been devaluing to a 22-year low. US dollar to Japan is now at about 140. It is very scary. So all the export companies in Japan are now facing a crunch in their export profits. Then currency rapid devaluation has caused their asset to almost turn into the bubble. Okay, and all these are replica of 97, 2008, okay, and now it's coming back. So which is why last night I was having a dinner sitting with Mr. Pong. So I whispered to him, I told him, I think the market crash is coming again. And he said, I thought so. All right, because this is actually, you see, when we look, because if someone asks me, say, Dawang, why are you always so confident? No doubt you are correct. I have been in industry, this is my 33rd year, okay, all the way. In my career, I only have one job. That is in the financial industry until now. But I have done a lot of backtracking and historical study R&D research over the last 100 years, when Dow Jones started in 1895, and how US abolished the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971, started to issue their government bonds, treasuries, and how they actually manipulate the whole world by using US dollars and gold reserve, and brought down all the market crash, okay, in 1987, 89, 91, Desert Storm, 97, Asian crisis, 2001, the dot-com bubble burst, 2007, subprime crisis, okay, and eventually now. You see, it's all inside my brain because it's on my fingertips. All this that I have studied, all the data and facts. Okay, so eventually, okay, on the top side, it looks like it's bad. Eventually, there came another unprecedented crisis in year 2020, and what is that? Okay, COVID. No one has expected COVID to be so disastrous. Everybody thought SARS was only about 7 months in 2003. So everybody thought COVID, 1 year, things will recover. But the second year went on, and now we're coming to the third year. Although we call post-COVID, but it's not true. The virus is still in the air. All right, everybody got to stay healthy. So probably it will take another 2 years for it to go off. But this COVID has done a lot of cleansing. Okay, if you look at another angle, a lot of cleansing on the earth by teaching people how to respect the earth, how to cut out pollution, and most importantly, decarbonization. All right, although our chairman still doesn't quite agree with me. Okay, he says it's a long shot. I agree it's a long shot, but the fact is that, okay, I will cover this at the end of this topic before I close, because the COVID has made a lot of people understand themselves, okay, and start to take care of their own health, okay, and the business turning into ESG mode. We call the environmental friendly, social responsibility, and green, okay. And because of that, trying to bring down the pollution on the earth, we are now moving into renewable energies. Although now the Russian-Ukraine crisis will be in high demand of energies, but eventually after this war is over, everybody will move to renewable energies, okay? And the reason why I said that is because I'm currently doing a project in China, which I am quite sure the West, okay, I would give a big difference. The demarcation of renewable energies or decarbonization. In the West, they will tell you, implement EVs, electrical vehicles. Okay, don't chop trees, no deforestation. That's correct. Keep all the swamp area, all right? Start to grow greens so they can actually quantify GHG, we call it greenhouse gas. Then you can earn carbon credit. But these are all the natural way of accumulating carbon credit, which will take a long way. It's an old way, old technique. But what I start to know now, okay, in China, they are now researching, which I believe by 2025, it will be announced to the world. I can just give you some heads up. This thing called ocean sink credit. When I told many people, honestly, many guys fell off the chair. And the first thing is they say, are you lying or are you telling the truth? Okay, what they are doing is this. They have a system that capture the carbon dioxide in the air, okay, and channel into the deep sea under the ocean. They call carbon sink, S-I-N-K, okay, and I don't know how they do it. And they were actually, okay, carbon dioxide is CO2, okay? If you break them, it becomes carbon plus oxygen, right? So the oxygen will be released into the ocean to support the marine ecology. That is protecting the earth. But the carbon, all right, will be regenerated and turned into biomass. So this is going to be what I call that, a revolving cycles, okay, which will earn carbon credit. Because moving into the future, in Singapore, our finance minister this year in April has already made a remark, just a remark. Said, Singaporeans, you're in a business, start paying attention to this. Carbon tax is going to increase from currently 2022, about $5 per carbon credit, which is equivalent to tax. Moving into 2030, another 8 years from now, it's going to be about $25 to $30, then about 6 times. Then by the year 2050, carbon tax could be anywhere from $60 to $80. And because of this, nobody really understood. Every day people knock doors on my office and say, Mr. Wong, what is that can grow from $50 that can grow from $5 to $80 in just 20 years? I better start looking at it and invest in it. So this is what I call carbon credit. Okay, whether you like it or not, it's coming. All right. So this is what I call the new world, renewable energies. Renewable energies is no more about just wind farm, okay, hydro farm, and solar farm, solar energy. Okay. Yes, these are the 3 renewables, but we're going to have one more, a high-tech system, which is the ocean sink credit is coming. I'm very quite sure of that in 3 years' time. All right. So when that happens, you just imagine everybody will gradually in the next 1 or 2 decades start to abandon dirty energy, which is coal, crude oil. We'll just use natural gas and all the renewable energies. All right. So moving to a new world, what is going to happen? There will be a tilt, okay, a replacement of the weightage ratio, okay, on the economy from the world, gradually from the West to the Asia. Remember this, because this so-called carbon credit decarbonization technology is going to be created, invented, and trademarked in Asia, starting from China and the rest of the ASEAN. So whatever the old school teachings, okay, in the West will slowly be abandoned. Okay, I am very sure of that. I will stand by my words on that. So just pay attention on the new world. Okay. So when the new world comes, of course, we have more things like 5G technology. We're going to talk about that later. Okay. So you see, when you look at the old world policy, when US dollar used to be so strong in the last 40 years, okay, the Americans controlled the world economy. Okay, whether they want to push it to a recession or to inflation, eventually to a stagflation, then the market crash again, recession, then the cycle moves on and on. Okay, every time when US cuts rate in the past, they print a lot of money, okay, and they buy valuable cheap assets from Asia at very cheap price after the crash. But the money is from the air because they keep printing and buy all the valuable goods. But the Asia country becomes poor and sell all their good stuff away at discounted price. Okay, this one doesn't sound very good to many people, but it's the truth. It is the truth. All right, so in the old world, okay, we have seen a lot of instability in monetary system, in the asset bubble, in the global economy, especially in Asia. We are always targeted. In our word we always kana wana, kana arrow from the back, walk on the street, kana from behind. Okay, then in the old world, a lot of changes in geopolitical regions, like ever since 1991, Soviet got disintegrated, then followed by countries disappear like Yugoslavia, Chechen, all this. Okay, we all know that. These are all history. Then sales of weapons from all the big countries like US, France, UK, to all the smaller countries, and a lot of money has been made. Okay, but the thing is, who would spend money to buy weapons when you could spend the money on health or to build infrastructure? Why there's a need to buy weapons is because of fear. Because fear of being invaded, fear of warfare. But who actually created all this discomfort that makes you buy all the weapons? And buy from who? Buy from me. Now you see the point? Okay, the cost. Okay, the root of the cost. And what's going to happen in the end actually come from the same party. That's in the old world, all right? There's no right or wrong, but that's in the old world. That's how they run the whole world like a business. Okay? Western dominance, that's in the old world, definitely. But moving to the new world after the pandemic crisis, all right? What we see now is, especially being led by China, we want peace. We want to build infrastructure. We want to share our economic growth together. And how do we do that? Okay, development of ties and economies through Belt Road initiatives. We call BRI. Okay. Personally, I would think BRI is a great project because it links 70 countries together into one single economy, all right, but not a single currency, a single economy, okay, by connecting maritime Silk Road, by ship freight, and also by high-speed rail. And people said, what could happen when these 70 countries link together or still grow, or maybe become 80, 90, 100 countries? I said, number one, logistic. Number two, movement of goods is much more cheaper and faster. All right. And of course, number three, distribution. A lot of distribution centers, logistics centers, transport will be built among these 70 countries. Then number four is voluntary migration. That means I may go to this country to start to do business. And eventually, there could be a lot of cross-border marriage, just as Singapore and Malaysia. All right, we don't like to have war. We don't like to quarrel because we have a lot of relatives in Malaysia and Malaysia have a lot of relatives in Singapore. You see, this is what we foresee in a good sense that it will actually bring the whole world together and smaller. All right. So BRI is a good project. And of course, it will inspire, stimulate a lot of tourism. A lot. So in the future, when BRI starts, what you're going to see is from Europe, Eastern Europe, you can actually take a train over 50, 60 days, all the way down, enjoy the holiday, play, stop over, do some business, and eventually come to Singapore as a last stop and take a flight back. That's why we are building T5. Okay. All right. Renewable energy, as I mentioned, weighing against GHG, we call it greenhouse gas, which is the carbon. All right. So greenhouse carbon will not be immediately replaced by carbon credit or renewable energy, but it will gradually in the next 10 years, 20 years. We are starting the trend in it. We could see that. And one thing that I want to share with you guys, because it has been proven that it has been certified, the geologists from all over the world, even they had this study since the 90s when they have the Kyoto Treaty, that if the planet continues to have ocean warming, okay, from now until year 2060, which is less than 40 years to go, just remember, in another less than 40 years ago, if the planet's surface just has to raise another 1.5 degrees Celsius of temperature, just 1.5 degree, just like our body having a fever. But when on the average, the whole planet's surface just raised by another 1.5 degrees Celsius, what's going to happen? There'll be a lot of tsunami, earthquake, okay, and the ocean plate moves, a lot of flood because the North Pole icebergs are going to melt, and many, many disasters will come, and a lot of virus will be germinated. So that's the reason why the whole world has signed the treaty and we want to decarbonize. We want to use renewable energy to replace the dirty energy. That's the reason. Okay, that's the reason. So we are moving to a new world, whether you like it or not. Because if you don't move to a new world, let me tell you, all of us, or our children in the next generation, we will face a lot of natural disaster. Something that we can't even imagine now. All right. So in the new world, what's going to happen again? Okay, last but not least is the rise of Asian technologies, because we have seen, okay, that the Chinese have the best technology for building infrastructure now. Nobody could build a high-speed rail like them at such a lower price. You can get a German to do it, you can get a Japanese to do it, but 3 times prices. Okay, those who have gone to China, you know the high-speed rail is fantastic, traveling at the speed of about 300 to 400 kilometers per hour. All right, so that's fantastic. Okay, and of course, there are many other Asian technologies, which I'm going to cover at the last slide before I end my presentation. So when the major technology is going to be based in Asia, okay, and developed by Asians, that's where we are going to move into a new world, because the importance and the essential weightings of the political influence was gradually moved from west to east. The West loved to instigate warfare, But today, if the major economy is going to be controlled by the Asian countries, what we want is peace. Because only through peace we can create abundance. When every country that link together in the BRI start to flourish, have abundance, do business, develop friendliness, nobody wants war anymore. Am I right? We want to make money. We want our next generation to flourish, to do good. We want to live happily. We want all the good things, but not war. All right, so we are moving to a new world starting from now. Okay, this is the next slide as I would cover on rate hike versus commodity risk. All right, it's very important. This rate hike refers to the US rate hike, US rate hike on the US dollar interest rate. Okay, if you look at this on the first quadrant and second quadrant, okay, the one at the top is the US Fed funds rate, which is the most primary base rate of US dollar. And the one at the bottom is actually a commodity benchmark. Okay, we call the GSCI. It stands for Goldman Sachs Commodity Index. This is a very major commodity index that comprises 42 commodity instruments, which include crude oil as one of the major benchmark. That's why it is very well distributed and measure the overall commodity performance in the world. Okay, one of the best benchmark. So when you compare the top and the bottom, all right, the first and second quadrant, the first and second quadrant is 4 years each, which represents President Obama when he was in office. All right. So when Obama took over in 2009 January, all right, the subprime crisis already erupted. So in order to keep the economy moving and stimulate growth, Obama actually kept interest rate at near to zero. Okay, at a historical low, the first time that is near to zero. So if you look at the quadrant one, which over 4 years, the interest rate at the top, you see is flat, almost zero. All right, if you look at this part, all right, the reading is zero. But if you look on the downside, on the bottom side, when interest rate is flat or near to zero, what happened was commodity actually start to move up. So this is a very good market equation where interest rate is going down or flat at very low price. Okay, commodity price will go up. Why? Very easy to borrow money. Borrowing cost is very cheap. So people borrow money to do business, to do export. So a lot of commodities have been trading over the world. That's a very simple reason. All right. And if somebody, and all of us here in the rubber industry, we also remember from 2009 when interest rate was being maintained at zero. From 2009 to 2011, rubber prices actually recovered from $1 to $5.75 per kilo. Am I right? That was the best time, and everybody starts to have a lot of happiness, drinks, that was the time in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, all right, when Obama was preparing to hand over after his second term, he needs to do tapering program. There's this thing called tapering, which means what? They started to increase interest rate gradually by trying to repatriate money back to the central bank. All right. So if you look at this, when interest rates are in the second quarter, you see on the back end slowly moving up, right? Which you read the top, Fed funds rate jumped from 0.25% to 1%, although it's still quite low, a gradual move up of the interest rate. But you look at the bottom here, okay, the commodity prices slump. So we arrive at this equation. When when interest rate goes up, commodity price come down. They go opposite way. All right. When interest rate falls, go down, technically speaking, commodity price will recover and go up. This is a very healthy equation, which anyone from economic faculty, if you study the book, this is what you learn. But the fact is, when we look at the third and the fourth quadrant, which is very short, 2 years each, why? Under Trump in the office, Trump only sit for one term. He only sat for one term, which is 4 years. And the first term when he came in, the first 2 years, he wants to make America great again. Why? He's a businessman. He did a lot of transport. He earns a lot of US dollar. Naturally, he wants US dollar to be strong because the stronger US dollar will make him richer. Okay? A selfish businessman and a president at the same time. So how to make America great again? increase interest rate. That was his first propaganda when he came to the office. So if you look at quadrant 3 at the top, when Trump came in, he pushed the Fed funds rate from 1% to 2.5%. Can you see that? On the third quadrant, which jumped very fast over the 2 years. But on the other hand, if you look at the bottom, commodity price didn't come down. By right, when Fed funds rate or interest rate increases, commodity price should come down, but it stayed flat. Why? Because at that time, okay, the commodity price on the overall has been very low and there's no more way to go lower. Gold prices at that time, between around 2016 to 2018, was almost at $1,000 gold prices. Everybody was worried and asked me, say, Mr. Wong, will gold prices go down below $1,000 per ounce? I remember Citi was the one that asked me. We were at, where were we together? I said, no, I said, just close the eyes and buy gold. Because when gold prices break $1,000, many countries will go bankrupt because they have gold as a reserve. That's why it bounced and went up. Today it's about $1,007, although it went up to the high of 2,000. All right. So commodity prices managed to stay flat. Okay, although it's not very healthy, it should go opposite. On the fourth quadrant, if you look at this, okay, that's when COVID erupted after year 2020. Okay, Trump initially wanted to make dollar very strong for him to earn a lot of US dollars on export. Okay, but because of the COVID, he has got no choice. He started to cut interest rate on the last 2 years of his term from 2.5% all the way down to 0.25%, 0.25%. He has got no choice. But if you look at this commodities chart at the bottom, when Fed funds rate fell so tremendously, so rapidly from 2.5 down to 0.25, by right, commodity benchmark should jump and fly. It should, but it didn't. Okay, it didn't. Because of the global slowdown in the ship freight, transport halt, COVID, everything came to a standstill. So in the quadrant 1 and 2, it's healthy economy. Quadrant 3 and 4, under Trump, you could see the whole US economy was ruptured. It's not in tune, out of rhythm. This is one very simple chart that I have observed, which I told many people. I said Trump will not last for second term. People say, no, he's a hero. I say hero dies young. Correct. Because this guy has made the US economic system so deviated and so deregulated, everything has been decoupled. He thinks he's good. But let me tell you, the Jews that run the US economy will want him to be out because everything is out of line. All right, this is how America works. But anyway, so 3 and 4 is what we call not in the proper pattern. Then come to quadrant 5. When Biden took over the office, White House in early 2021. Now if you look at it, when Biden took over the office, all right, he actually started to increase interest rate, talking about tapering, but starting from this year, 2022, all the way from 0.25%, now back up to 2.5%. And the reason is, okay, fight inflation. Actually, I tell you nonsense. We have economic figure over the whole world now saying that there's an inflation, why food prices are increasing. We all know that, right? Okay, even I came here 2 years ago, KL, one noodle and now one noodle, the price different also. Okay, coffee also different price. But the fact is, are we really having a good inflation that people are having better salary, more job potentials, more revenue? We are not. In fact, I think we are in a stagnant economy. But why are the prices going up? Okay, this is something we need to understand. So, I call this a fictitious inflation caused by US, which simply out of rate hike. Because when you keep increasing rate hike, people will stop investing in stock market. Why? Because when I invest in a blue chip stocks, I earn about 2 or 3%, okay, dividend every year, or even 4%. But I have to withstand the price swing up and down. So for the same yield, the same return, for 2.5% now, I just invest and buy US dollars. I sit, okay, my dollar will not devalue, and I still earn 2.5%. So why should I take the risk to buy blue chip stocks? That is the reason. So now, if you look at this, okay, 0.25 to 2.5%, there's a big shoot up in US dollars that caused the inflation. So inflation is not caused really by the Russian war. It's actually bullshit. It is simply out of a rapid interest rate increment in US that caused the whole world go into inflation. All right? But if you look at the bottom, okay, which I put a black swan there. Black swan means what? Please be careful. In financial technical term, black swan means a market crash could be coming. Because this is exactly the same thing that happened in 97, in 2001, in 2007, in 2007. All right? Because if you look at the top side again, quadrant 5, when Fed funds rate jumps so rapidly, commodity price actually should fall in order to create the balance. We call the balance equation. But in fact, commodity price has been going up this year. Things are getting expensive, especially those that are in building materials or construction. They suffer, even in Singapore. So many main con, even the paymaster is Singapore government that engage them to do public work. Imagine, main con also declare bankrupt. Okay, government can pay them very fast, but the fact is that whatever they sign on the contract, maybe like 30 million to build this community center, but now the building material price has gone up much more than what they collect from the paymaster. So they got no choice. So this is actually happening now in Malaysia too. A lot of construction has stopped, right, over the last 2 years. No workers, don't have this, don't have that. So if you look at a strong interest rate that jump up, but commodity prices also start to increase, which is abnormal. This is abnormal. What will happen? This is going to cause an inflation. Now we are calling it inflation. But when this thing persists, the inflation will eventually become stagflation. Okay? Inflation means what? People are having good money, salary increment, boss having good business. I'm having a healthy inflation, a stronger money to chase after more luxury goods or commodity or food. That's called inflation. But we are not. When you move into stagflation, that means things are expensive, prices are going up, but my money value is shrinking. I'm not able to buy more. In fact, now I got lesser money to buy more expensive things. What will happen? We all know. Yeah, we all know. Okay? Your mortgage loan will face problem. Banks will start to call you on your house, on your car, on this, on that, then your personal loan on this. A lot of problem will happen. All right? So when interest rate increase, the first instrument that will suffer impact is always housing loan. Okay? For people that cannot afford to pay the increased borrowing costs. So housing price will fall. And when that happens, it will trigger a snowball. This is going to happen. Okay? My prediction is not something from the thin air, but it is just a repetition of track record in the past. All right, so be careful of this. I wrote, stagflation leads to eventual recession after the market crash. All right, this is the Fed funds rate against the commodity risk. All right, now let me talk about Fed funds rate against S&P 500. It's a bit different. On the top side, Fed funds is still the same, the interest rate, okay, quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I just want to go through quickly. If you look at the bottom on the S&P, which is a major stock benchmark, okay, every quadrant you see the price going up. Why? That means, okay, a very simple report card of every US president, regardless who I don't care, Republican or Democrats. Every American president hand in their report card when they step down or leave the office by showing I put the stock market at a new historical high before I left the office. It's a glory. Okay? But the poor people don't have money to invest. I don't care. But the fact is that their cohort of people will make a lot of money. So, which is why they cause the disparity of rich and the poor in a very great distance. All right, but if you look at the last quadrant here, which I want to cover, okay, which now we are seeing that the Fed funds rate jumps from 0.25% to 2.5. But eventually, did you see the stock index now dropping after so many years? Which is why I put a black swan again. This is a signal that things are beginning to fall, which we're going to see it. My own personal prediction, I think most likely is going to be end of this year to first quarter next year. Okay, this is a rubber price trend. So once we understand the last two slides, we are looking at rubber price not too optimistically, okay, but I still believe and we hope that rubber prices could still hold on for a while. All right, not going back to $1. Okay, if you look at this chart, I sent it to Dr. Ong, dated 25th August. Okay, when it was trading at this is a SICOM price, $1.41 per kg. I already predicted it's going to go into 130, and today it's about 131, 132. Okay, you see. So I predicted, but 130 is a strong support that it might effectively do a rebound. But this rebound is going to be short-lived. It's not going to be like, wow, all the way up. Okay, so what we're going to face now here in the last quarter of this year until December, okay, the last 3 months, for example, we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to see or expect another 3 more interest rate hike, which means commodity prices will turn soft. Okay, rubber prices likewise will go sideways. Even when it jumps up, but it won't be too high. What I wrote at the bottom here is a strong dollar index, okay, at 20-year high. That means interest rate is high and dollar is strong. Okay, it's going to be not favorable to market to rubber demand. Okay, SICOM rubber might sink to $1.30, which now we are seeing it before turning up. Okay, turning up. Once it turns up, it will go sideways. It will not go too high. So for the last quarter of year 2022 until December, what I personally predict and foresee is that the whole rubber price in SICOM will trade from 130 to about 170. Although I put a 165 to 160 to 175. That's the top range. All right. So which means every time when we see SICOM price hit 170, it will start to come down. But once they come down to the bottom 130, it will go sideways. Okay. This will last for another 3 to 4 months. Until first quarter next year, if there's a market crash, then it might fall back to $1.10 or even $1. But of course, if I'm wrong, if there's no market crash, I think after the sideways, then it could climb up again. Once SICOM price break 170, the next top is going to be about $2 or $2.05. But the chances is not high. Okay, I'm just stating my point. But keep it at 130 to 170 for the time being, at least for another 3 months. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to talk on the last slide. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the future of the Asian technologies will be, the future of the new discovery and creation of technology will be Asian-based. Why? If we look at this. Okay, the new 4 cornerstones of the global economy moving from now into the future. Number 1, Belt Road initiatives, which link the 70 countries into one single economy, as I mentioned, on logistics, on goods, on cross-border trade, on voluntary migration, tourism, marriages, everything. Then the second one is 5G satellite technology. All right. While we are still using 4G, once we have an earthquake, we are not able to communicate anymore. But using 5G, because they use satellite to connect, you can make calls even if there's a tsunami. And using 5G technology is going to be very useful not only in our lifestyle improvement, but in military equipment and military preparation, which is why the Western economies are trying very hard, okay, to terminate 5G and to ban 5G from being implemented. That's the reason why. Because 5G is one of the best technology that can support military equipment, okay? And China is the head of 5G invention. Talking about 5G technology, give me last 3 minutes. Out of the world today, 5G IPs and trademark total in the world, there are about 2,800 IPs. Out of 2,800, Huawei actually is holding 1,800 IPs. Definitely they are the winner. All right, so this is one reason. And the third one is decarbonization technology, as I mentioned earlier. All right, okay, decarbonize means how to earn carbon credit by not just talking about manufacturing renewable energies, not just talking about grow more trees, Not talking about deforestation, the kind of thing. We are talking about how to earn carbon credit, how to create carbon credit, which ocean sink credit technology is one of those things that I just mentioned. Okay, and the last one is metaverse on blockchain. China is going to start the first eRMB. Actually, they are now on pilot program already. And eventually, a lot of countries in our ASEAN region will start to follow. Okay, that means we don't use fiat money anymore. It's not just digital currency, it's cryptocurrency. Okay, we call it metaverse. All these are coming up, and they are, if you look at these four things are undeniably, am I right to say they are all Asian-based? They are not US-based. They are not European-based. So the future of the world is in Asia. All right, so with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I exceed my time, right? Did I? Thank you.
Thank you, Dar. No, you are perfectly on time, actually. I think so. Yeah. So we have now 5 minutes. I think you gave a lot of information, and people have a lot to digest. So I'm not so sure if they already did. But I would like to open the floor to some questions to Dar. So there is any questions from the floor? Wow, all clear.
They understand.
They understand.
Very well. Very well.
You have time for one question. I just want to ask Mr. Gamo whether he has any prediction on the ringgit of Malaysia.
Okay.
Prediction of ringgit, right?
So,
okay. Can I? Just
Of
1 minute.
course.
Okay. Actually, in year 2020, in Singapore, I did a webinar. I predicted, okay, US dollar ringgit will reach 4.5. Everybody say this guy is crazy. Today it is 4.5. Okay. I would think it's almost at the top now. Okay. The next higher top, it will go very quickly over next 3 months or until January year 2023. Okay. We may reach 4.6 to 4.65. But 4.7 is not likely. But once it hit the top, it will start to come down. Because I foresee once the crash comes in, okay, on the first quarter next year, if I were right, for example, dollar will start to slide. Okay, dollar will fall. So that's where I'm worried rubber prices will fall. Then eventually, second half of next year, commodity price will start to surge. So when we foresee that ringgit is now so much devalued, but it's almost at the top, we had to bite the bullet for another 3-4 months, okay, to see the rebound. But once it rebound, right, dollar ringgit will start to fall. All right. So I've been telling a lot of people, like what I told Mr. Pong again. He's very kind. He got an answer from me last night already. He just want me to share with all of you. I know that. Kind man. I told him last night, I said, those who have got money, this is the best time for you to buy quality asset in Malaysia. Quality asset, you go and think what is that. Because if you are able to have the holding power, I'm not talking about 3 or 6 months, another 3 to 5 years, when things go back, well, it's a cycle. Whatever comes down will go up. It's a cycle. Okay? With quality asset in the next 3 to 5 years, number one, even the asset has not appreciated, but ringgit rebound, you could have earned easily 10 to 20% appreciation. That's also another reason. Okay? You will see ringgit bounce back. Secondly is when the value of the product also recovers, that is the second channel you make a profit. So all in all, within 3 to 5 years, whatever quality asset in Malaysia could easily appreciate 40 to 50%. So you go and think of it. This is something I think is a very good sharing today. Thank you, Mr. Pong.
Any other question? No? If no question from the floor, I have a question. Because you spoke a lot about the US, of course, because the influence of the US dollar on commodity prices, I guess. But for commodities, if there is one country that has great importance, and also for rubber, is China. Now, China right now is facing a lot of issues, stalling growth, unemployment, shutdown for COVID-19, and all these factors put together, of course, are a lot of concern because the importance of China on the demand side and also for rubber on the supply side. So what is your view on China, short term and medium term?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I would think, as I mentioned, next year, regardless there'll be a market crash or no market crash, right? For example, no market crash. Next year will be a very tough year, tougher than this year, because it's a market trough. It's going to the bottom, all right, next year. And China is now already going through economic contraction. We all know that. Okay, next year it will be the same thing. Okay, what I'm saying is China has got very strong foundation on infrastructure and technologies that will last them into many more decades. So in the short term, over this year to next year, nobody will be doing good. Even US, Europe, okay, I think Europe, by end of this year, I take note, I would think there'll be a lot of political unrest or even civil unrest because of that problem. Inflation, energies are so expensive, they came up, it down the prices, and people are out of job. So next year, if there's a market crash or even no market crash, things will not be easy. Same as China, the contraction will continue. Definitely. There's no reason why everybody know good, they are good. Because they are also going into a restructuring of the whole economic infrastructure. But after this correction or crash, whether it's a big crash or small correction, okay, I personally foresee in 2024 will be the beginning of a new recovery. Because US, when they start printing money and let US dollar value falls, that's where they start quickly within 1 to 1.5 years to buy Asian assets, or even in Africa. Africa got a lot of good natural resource asset. But after the whole purchase exercise is over, things will go back to normal. But then you will realize a lot of assets will be owned by American companies. Okay, that's a fact for the last 40 years. So the recovery will start to come in 2024, which eventually we will see a good flourishing. People will go back to the normal life, and Bitcoin, for those people who believe in that, will start to go again much higher than the previous one. So 2024 is an important year. Next year, we have to bite the bullet, okay, save your cash or start to do your portfolio planning. Okay, nothing will be good. Okay, don't be upset. But 2024 is where I mentioned about the new world is coming. Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dar. Thank you very much for your presentation. So for this year and next year, be quiet and not to be much excited. And we have to wait 2024. If nothing happens in between, right? Okay, now we move at our next speaker. That is New Yang Wan he's a senior researcher at the Malaysian Rubber Board, and he will speak about investigation on natural rubber commodity price through machine learning and neural networks. So please, the floor is yours.
Do we have a pointer? No, yeah? I mean the laser light you have. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So many of my friends also call me Roland, my English name given by my parents. So today, my presentations is related to investigation on natural rubber, commodity prices through machine learnings and deep learnings, which is something that I learned along the way. And I got interested into this topic when I was doing my PhD at Imperial College London, followed by doing data analytics at the University of Cambridge in UK, which is online for the Cambridge Analytics. Now, what are we doing, or what kind of revolution that we're having here in terms of industrial revolution? So these are the important pillars that are happening. And today, my presentation is looking at all the big data that we have collected through Internet of Things, through all the devices, sensors, and so on. And what are we going to do about it on this data? How are we going to utilize this data to do some predictions, to do preparations, as mentioned by Dan Wong in his presentation. Now, many of us make decisions every day. So we have cognitive or heuristic bias. Heuristic is something like our rule of thumbs that we learn along the way, our experience. We make decisions based on what we know. Example like when we finish our secondary school, we are applying for our degree, and we envision that, say, engineers or medical or medicine is a better job. So we apply for it and we join the course. But then eventually, when you attend the course, you learn that this might not be the subject that I'm interested at. Then after you graduate, you change your job to another field. However, cognitive bias is a systematic error that we make decision. And example like confirmation bias, something like you have in front of you, you interpret, and but you didn't interpret what you can't see. So you made a decision based on what you have, and you go forward from there. It might be right, but it might be wrong along the way. So those are the things that happenings daily in our life. Now, what we are trying to do now is that we use data to make informed decision. With the data that we have gathered, it can guide us through on what we need to do next based on those data we have collected. So then we validate a course of actions based on the data we have. Now, in today's presentation, I'll be using two major models. The first is the machine learning, using algorithms and statistical models to analyze on this and interference from the data in this data that we have. And neural networks is a sub-subject of machine learning. So they are algorithms that we try to mimic how human thinks based on nodes on neurons, and they programs it according to algorithms to come out with patterns for analysis. Now, forecasting commodity prices for me is associated with the livelihood of the economy of the nation, and is unpredictability of the world financial issues. We hope that with all the factors that we have in the world market, we are able to correlate it, and hopefully we are able to forecast the commodity prices. And there are major concerns for venture capitalists, traders, producers, and policymakers are very important for them to understand the prices that we have. Now, as mentioned by Anthony Richardson, one of the founders for IT company, data levels all arguments. So we hope that with the data that we have, we learn from it, and we put aside all the bias, decision bias that we have, and so we don't have to argue so much, but based on the data, this is what we have. But of course, like what we know, certain news and so on, certain data that we gather might not be accurate. So we need some other factors to help us in our decision making. Now, in these works, I try to explore the potential of using machine learning and neural networks to predict SMR 20 price prediction. Okay, my methods. Together with my team from Malaysian Rubber Board, we have gathered about 32 years of data. But the data that I'm presenting today, or the data set that I'm analyzing, is the annual average price. Example, like for SMR 20 that we have gathered, it's a daily price that MRE have gathered, and it's an average for that particular year. So it's a large data set, but we narrow down to average per year for 32 years. And the target, or we call it the response or dependent, over here is a SMR 20. The variable or the predictors are annual consumption, annual production, world GDP, China GDP, oil prices, world annual stocks, and SPR prices. So before we start the analysis, we try to figure out whether all these predictors are important, or whether when I want to predict my commodity prices, should I have all this information in hand? What we did. Sorry. Can we move back? Okay, so before I go to that, in this analysis, I go by a very simple model, which is a linear regression analysis that I believe many of us understand how this linear regression being studied. So example, like I have this particular point that I gather from my Y and X data and try to plot a linear line over here. Then from there, these middle linear lines, say is Y equal to M1 X1 plus C, is my model, my prediction model. From there, I use another data set and I plot my red dots over here. So the red dots, which is not in line with these model lines, which is an error, I call that. So the red line is red dots here is the actual, and the predictor is over at this point. So these are the error that I have. So what I'm trying to do is that I have my model, my predictions, and I'm trying to study how good is my model that I have trained, and how far is it for my predicted model compared to the actual data. So we have an error analysis, sum of error, SSE, but more importantly, for my study metrics, we use the root mean square error, RMSE, as my indication. The lower the value, the better they are. Now, as mentioned earlier on, my targets that data or the predictions that I wanted to do study here is SMR price. Example, like I wanted to correlate with SBR price. So this is my first predictor here. So we form a very simple linear regression, straightforward, Y mx plus C. But how about if I'm going to include the rest of the predictor? Then the equations become more complicated. It's multidimensional. Okay, now, before we go to the analysis result, this is the data that I wanted to share with all of you, which has been shared by Dao Wong as well. But what we can observe over here is that the bar over here is the SMR price, SMR 20 prices, and versus the crude oil price that we can see. But then we can see from the figure here, as we go along, somehow the crude oil price does correlate with the SMR 20 prices. And okay, we have Asian financial crisis in 1997. The price go down, so-called for the crude oil price as well. Argentina economic crisis in this region, 2021, in 2001 and 2002, then it slowly increased up. So the price have the kind of correlate well with each other. But however, what we can see here is year 2011, we have this outlier, which is the highest SMR 20 price that we have observed. And do remember that because of this outlier, with the data that we collected and we tried to input to train the model, it has some effect on the prediction. Because the more data we have, the more data we use to train the model, the better the prediction they are. But if we have few outliers, the higher price and so on, it will affect on the efficiency of the predictions in the model. So then we have a Russian financial crisis 2014, decrease and so on, and mentioned by Dao Wong earlier on, President Donald Trump interfering with the Fed fund rate and so on up to 2021. Okay, now before we start the analysis, as mentioned earlier on, we have 7 predictors. Now, whether all these predictors are important, whether we should use all these predictors in our analysis. We run the Fisher after analysis, and we learn that from here, the NR consumptions, productions, SBR prices, and crude oil price have a more significant impact on the SMR 20 prices. Whereas the rest, the world GDP, world NR stock, or China GDP have lesser impact on the SMR20 prices based on the analysis over here. And then to reconfirm the F-test analysis result, we run the MR test over here. And both tests show quite a very similar trend observation over here, whereby the NR consumption production are still have a significant. Crude oil price and SPR are all fall in the top region. So with that finding, we use these 4 predictors to put into the model to train the machine learnings, to train the neural networks to see how good are the prediction. So third, we try to identify a better model to do the SMR20 predictions. Okay, and in the model that I've chosen in the analysis, I use machine learnings that include regressions, tree, support vector, machine, Gaussian, Kenner, and Ensemble. Whereas for neural networks, they have many different networks. But in this case, I use narrow, medium, or wide in the neural networks model. Now, for comparison, just to check how good is the model, I include the 7 predictors and the 4 predictors in the analysis. Now, what you can see over here is that RMSE, the lower they are, the better is the predictions. So we can compare these two. The 7 predictors provide a better predictions as compared to the 4 predictors. It does make sense in the way that the more information you have, the more factors you include into the predictions model, then it might provide a better accuracy in the predictions. However, it's not all the times that you need to collect all the data. So say that 4 predictors, how good are they compared to the 7 predictors? Somehow, we can see that 7 predictors are better, and they're slightly far away. And in this model here, we learned that supportive vector machine, linear regression, and Kenner provide a better RMSE, lower. However, the R square is higher in a way to predict the actual data. Now, what happened is that usually as a data analytics, when we train the model, we don't use 100% of the data set. We put aside 80% to train the model, and the balance 20% as a test to test how good is a model to do the prediction. So we run the test again later on. And what I'm trying to show here is that the 80% data set validation result. Now we have the predicted versus the true response. Okay, so the middle line over here, the further away from the middle line, it does show the residual of the predicted point. So example like for support vector machine, RMSE is about 152 as shown earlier on, and then the R square is 0.73. Okay, now in these 3 models here, linear regression show a better R square, which is higher. R square nearer to 1 is a better prediction. The R square is between 0 and 1. So the higher they are, let's say if I can get up to 0.9, 0.95 is a better prediction. And RMSE lower they are is better. Now this is based on 80% data set. We use a 20% balanced data set to check how good is the model. After running, we were quite surprised that another model, regression 3, provide a better RMSE over here, 110. The R square is 0.75. Okay. Now, so what happened over here in the model? Now we can see that the SMR20 prices, residual, which is versus the predicted response. The further away from the line, it does show that more error from there. And this is the based on the prices from 300 up to 800, which is 3 ringgit up to 8 ringgit price one. And this is based on 80% data set. Over here on the right side is a 20% data set. They predict quite closely from the line. So it's up to 0.98. Now, I called up MATLAB, which I use, the software that I use to do the analysis. What they told me is that when you choose 80% data set with a balanced 20% data set, it's based on random. Okay, and when they put aside the data set, the randoms of the data set when they analyze is same for all the models. Now, how comes this model here produce a much higher accuracy, up to 0.98, which is too good to be true? Let's look at the curve. We have the response SMR20 over record number. Record number over here are referring to the number of years from 1990 up to 2021. As mentioned earlier on, the more data you have, the better is the prediction. So that we can see over here is that that time the price are quite consistent in a way with other data that we collected. So the error of the predictions are smaller. However, as mentioned later on by Dow Wongs, because of the interference of policies and so on, the errors become larger, especially in this 2011. We believe that because of the outlier, the model are unable to predict the prices accurately. Okay, if I correlate with the SMR20 prices to SBR prices, similar trend occur as well. As we see that when the price go higher, the model are unable to predict the SMR price efficiently. So these are the curve that we can see, especially when the price go up to 3.5 USD per kg, and then the price of the SMR which is at this range. So this is a model error that we can see. Okay, so this is the machine learning model that we use to predict the SMR20 prices. And another model that we use is neural networks. However, in the neural networks at this junction, we believe is that because of the we are using linear regression method to do the SMR20 price prediction, and we believe that it might not be a linear regression. Therefore, the neural networks are at this junction, we are unable to do the better prediction for SMR20. And the RMSE is much higher compared to machine learning, so go for the R square as well. Okay, and why do I say that earlier on? If you have a R square of negative, it indicates that the predictions or the plotted lines are not in linear form. It does go out from the unlinear line. Okay, and as compared to the earliest machine learning, you can see that the dotted lines that we plot over here have a higher error in terms of the prediction as compared to machine learning. So from the analysis, we learned that for the annual average price for SMR20, as compared to the rest of the 7 predictors, at these junctions, neural networks might not be a suitable model to do the predictions, as compared to what we have here using the neural networks for that. Okay, so the conclusion is that machine learning's example in this case, assemble boosted tree model show higher predictions for the SMR20. In the case for the data set that we have, for the 80% and 20% data set that we use to do the analysis. So predictors such as NR consumption, NR production, crude oil prices, and SBR prices, that we can use these predictors to use it as the guidelines to do our SMR20 prediction. Okay, and with that, I would like to thank Malaysian Rubber Board management for allowing me the team to do the study, and MRB Economics Units Division, as well as Malaysian Rubber Exchange for providing the data set to do the analysis. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this presentation, very interesting. There is any question? Yeah. Can you come to the microphone there, please?
Hi, thanks for the presentation.
Can you introduce yourself first?
Yes, I'm Luke Wan from Gatandas. Very curious, if you have the 32 years of data, why don't you use the monthly averages?
Oh, okay.
And then could you comment a little bit on the, the data for NR production, consumption, and NR stock?
Mhm.
On the sort of validating that data itself, like how accurate are those that data set, basically?
Okay, you mean that if I remove the rest of the predictors, I use two predictors as my main predictors to predict SMR20 prices?
No, as in because NR consumption, production, and NR stock values are not exactly very accurately publicly
understand.
known. So how sure are you on validating the accuracy of the data set?
Okay.
And on the using the monthly values, because we know that seasonally rubber has changes in its pricing over the years. Wouldn't a monthly breakdown give you more information rather
Yes.
than a yearly average?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very good question here. This is our initial study whereby we want to check whether these machine learnings or neural networks are able to do the predictions. And of course, our next stage is go to monthly basis or even daily. The issue with the monthly or daily later on is whether I will be able to get a full set of data. So SMR20 prices we can get, but how about the NRBR prices on the production and consumption, as well as the others? So the more importantly is that the data collection that we have, how we structure it, and how we remove the unnecessary data that will affect the SMR20 prices. But I do agree with you, monthly basis later on will provide a better predictions as compared to the yearly average, because yearly average has averaged out all the high and low and so on. It might not give a good prediction, but somehow I believe that it will able to show certain guidelines on how high or how low is the SMR20 prices. Okay. Now, the second question regarding NR production and consumption, I do agree that the information might not be accurate in such a way, and even for SMR20 as well, that the data that we collected is based on the daily basis, based on the panel and so on. It might not be the actual transacted price that we have for SMR20. So these are the pro and con things that we have to consider in the so-called data analytics in this case. Yeah. So, and the next stage later on, so we look at other source of information that we can gather, that we can compile a good data set of monthly basis and see which is the important significant predictors that we are able to predict the SMR20 prices. Thank you for the question. Good question.
Thank you. If just I can say, make a comment. If you want to increase the accuracy of your data,
Yes.
use IRG data.
Yes, that's a good one.
I think there is another questions there. Can you approach the microphone, please?
Hello, hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
This is Edward from MTC, Ivory Coast. I was wondering whether the goal of your study is it to predict the price of the stock market on the SMR, or it is just analyzing the data and collecting and helping maybe traders or stockholders to make better choices on production or whatever? Because
okay. So thank you so much for the question. It's a good question here. At the moment, my side and team, we are trying to understand or try to utilize the statistical model such as machine learning or neural networks to see whether this model we can use it as a guidelines to do the SMR20 prediction. So it's just to check how good is the algorithms, and because we understand that machine learnings or neural networks has been widely used in the world in other data analysis. So on our side, since we have this data set, what else we use it, and then we try to see whether this model are good enough in our daily work for that.
Just one last thing,
Okay.
because for what we know on the trading basis, there are different factors that are very rational. I mean, we all know that there is the demand and supply, but then there's different actors that play in the game, the feelings and emotions. So when we discuss, most of the time we contract prices and we move goods in commodity trading, physical commodity tradings, it is way more difficult for us to do the correct choice, because there are a lot of aspect, logistic, and a lot of different point of view that I think interfere in the price too. So I would like to know if you guys have figured out how to balance this risk and irrationality into your studies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that questions. In fact, I do agree with you very much. Before I start looking into this data set, I understand that the SMR prices or the other predictors that we have gathered is not a straightforward data. A lot of, like what you mentioned, the price, the insurance price, the transportation costs, and so on, have an effect on the final price. So I believe that in near future, for this kind of analysis, we really have to sit down with, say, industry in a way, that to get more informations, how we structure the data, and with a good data set, I would say, with a good data set, we should be able to do a better prediction for any prices or any targeted prices value that we intended to.
Okay.
Dalbong, no question.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause for our speaker. Thanks. Okay, and we go now to our last speaker. So we heard about some rubber price forecast first, then we have seen as we can use new tools to try to forecast prices. And now the most important one. So what is the importance of all this work in relation to natural rubber and natural rubber price? What it means? Why we are so concerned about prices? So I would like to give the floor to another friend, Mohamed Fazil Rahman. He's from the International Rubber Consortium company in Thailand, based in Thailand. So we are all curious about your presentation. So Fazil, take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. You've been always very friendly and kind to me. Good afternoon, selamat sore, selamat petang, sawadee ka. And my fellow or esteemed speakers have touched on price predictions before me. So I'm not going to delve into price predictions in my presentation, but rather the importance and dynamics of this natural rubber pricing in ensuring the sustainability of the industry. Right? Yeah, right. Let's move to the next slide, please. All right, okay. Could you restart it for me, please? Yeah. So you're recording the presentation, right? Okay. Nope. Just back to the outline. Right. I've got 5 areas on my presentation. The first one is the roles of the tripartite cooperation in sustainable natural rubber sector. So when we mention sustainable, we refer to the remunerative income for upstream and also the sustainable and our supply for downstream sectors at fair prices, of course. And next, I will touch on the overview of NR sector in the 3 countries, the member governments of the tripartite cooperation, namely Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And we'll delve into factors affecting natural rubber prices. We also going to have a look at the challenges in the supply chain of natural rubber. We will touch a little bit on the stock level, diseases, unexpected events. Of course, it has been touched by Mr. Dawang just now, as well as agronomic issues. And finally, what are our views towards some more sustainable and remunerative pricing of this commodity? Now, the roles of tripartite rubber cooperation. When I mention tripartite cooperation, is between the 3 member countries, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So what are our roles in sustainable and our sector? There seems to be lacked in these. Yeah, can someone help me and just press for me? I will just give a cue. It's much better. Next slide. Yes, this is the one. All right. When we mention the tripartite cooperation, we always refer to the Bali Declaration, signed on 12 December 2001 between the ministers in charge of natural rubber at that time, witnessed by the prime ministers and the president of the 3 countries. So the ministers, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, pledged to cooperate to seek in reviving rubber prices to levels which are remunerative to producers on the basis of targeted prices. And secondly, of course, to seek in managing the imbalance of supply and demand, which has largely resulted in prevailing depressed prices at that time. And then the 3 governments signed MOU on rubber cooperation in 2002, where they jointly established International Tripartite Rubber Council. Right. And then they incorporated the International Rubber Consortium in 2004, of which I am from. And regardless of these documents or declaration and MOU or organizations, the 2 goals remain unchanged. The first one is to achieve a long-term price trend, which is stabilized, sustainable, and remunerative to the farmers, to the producers who are at the core business of this commodity. And number 2, we do not forget the other side of the spectrum of the industry, which is to maintain a supply-demand balance to ensure adequate supply of this commodity in the market at fair prices. Next, please. Yeah, this is the signing ceremony at Bali in, I think, Tampak Siring Istana, Tampak Siring Palace in 2001. Right, next. Now, let's have an overview of the NR sector in the 3 countries. Next. Yeah, we refer to the NRPC 2022 latest bulletin. The NR productions in 2021, we could see that the 3 countries constitute of 59% of NR production market share in the global market. In terms of plantation area, in terms of hectareage, the 3 countries constitute 71% of this area in the global market. All right, next. Now, in terms of export, 63% of the global export comes from the 3 countries. And we also consume for our downstream sectors as much as 14%. So you could see how important is the tripartite cooperation in, I would not say managing, but in terms of balancing the industry to make sure that everyone's happy. Okay, next. Now, factors affecting NR prices. I'm not going to delve a lot into this because some of the factors have been touched by my previous speakers. But of course, this one, expansion of planting area. This is important because we have traditional planting area, the 3 countries, and also newly emerged or emerging countries. This includes Cote d'Ivoire, Myanmar, and also Philippines to a certain extent. So if they open up a new plantation, of course it would affect the natural rubber supply to the global market. And on the other hand, if the producing countries replant or uproot the old rubber trees, either rubber to rubber or rubber to other crops, the first few years, up to 6 years, of course, the rubber cannot be tapped. So you will have short-term decrease of the NR supply for that. But if it replanted to other crops, then we're going to have issue with sustainability of the industry. Now, when we talk about supply, of course, it's directly related to productivity and yield of the clones of the trees that are used to be planted in the plantation. Now, I think my colleague has, previous speakers have touched on NR price. I talked with statisticians, and they told me that the NR price itself determine the future price of NR, especially in short term, in next 1 or 2 months, but not in a longer term, like 3 years, 4 years, no. And when we visited some plantations and we talked to the farmers in the northern part of Thailand and also the southern part, we noticed that they started to be keen to replant rubber and replace it to durian, especially Montong cultivar and Musang King in the southern area of Thailand. Now, of course, oil palm is always being the rival of the crop. Many farmers, especially in the south of Thailand, they prefer to plant oil palm, and this is one of the challenges that we are still having. That the industry are not able to entice or convince the younger generation to continue producing rubber. Now, the next one is weather and climate. Of course, this would give temporary disruption to natural rubber supply. And we've seen that the prolonged La Nina has impacted negatively, where the plant disease of Pestalotiopsis, especially in Indonesia, spread faster than before because of this wet and damp environment contributed by prolonged La Nina in this region. Next slide, please. Okay, all right. When we talk about fundamentals, we see from both sides, the demand and also supply. So now, when it comes to demand, of course, the GP of major economies, firstly is China, since we know that China is the major consumer of rubber. And of course, we have USA and in EU. I think Dr. Roland has included this in your prediction, right? Of course, we have stocks and inventory and our price itself. And since 70%, 72% to be exact, of NR demand is used in tire industry, of course, it's directly related to automobile and the crude oil price. Next slide, please. And what are the factors affecting NR price? Now, we noticed that even though we have supply and demand fundamentals, but nowadays we notice more and more influence by the natural rubber futures market in the price of NR. And this, of course, involves market sentiment. And when we say market sentiment, it involves speculative activities. I'm not going to delve into that, but I think you all understand what's happening in the futures market in the 3 main commodities market for NR, SICOM, TOCOM, and also Shanghai Futures Exchange. And of course, exchange rate, I think the speakers just now mentioned about exchange rate in US dollars and the stocks level. Next slide. Now, the challenges in NR, I'm not going to delve, next slide. I'm not going to delve into this because it has been repeated many times previously, but I'm going to highlight the case study of Malaysia, where the declining NR production from 2007 as much as 1.2 million at that year to only 0.5 million in 2021. And we notice that the smallholders in Malaysia are shifting to other profitable crops and other more remunerative economic activities. Now, what is the implication to the industry? Of course, it will affect the sustainability of the NR supply. Next slide. Now, all right, what are our views? This is the last slide, okay, next. The practice of referring to the future price as the price reference of physical market must be reconsidered. That's our view. It's not directly reflective to current factors of NR production. Number two, it does not consider the cost of production in producing rubber. Number three, it's largely dependent on the dealing in the futures market, whereby farmers are not involved. Okay. Without farmers, rubber will not be produced. Okay. Number two, NR producing countries could establish effective mechanism in managing the supply and demand by controlling stocks, including stock overhang, if there's any. I'm not saying that there is stock overhang, but if there's any. Number three, ideally, rubber price should be based on price quoted by the farmers at the spot or physical market, after considering the cost incurred in producing that rubber. Now, and then lastly, is authorities responsible for rubber producing countries should seriously consider a sustainable price level or mechanism for producing rubber to be remunerative enough to the industry to sustain. So yesterday I listened to one of the plenary speakers. He mentioned we must make sure that there is enough natural rubber for now and the future. How? Of course, this one I add, by compensating and taking care of all parties involved, particularly those who are producing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It's short, but it was effective, I think. So there is any question for Fazil?
Pong Kai Si, Prim. I have a question regarding this sustainable rubber price mechanism that has been proposed by ANRPC, all right, where basically the premise is a lot to do with what you said about the future market determining the pricing mechanism, and farmers has virtually no say. And the proposal by ANRPC is to have a ban of sustainable price based on cost of production plus extras for the farmers. So, well, what's your view on that?
Thank you, Mr. Pong. I'm not sure how you knew about this, but because they have not finalized the sustainable pricing mechanism, right?
No, they're doing
the SPM. Okay, all right. Because for what I understand, they have not finalized this SPM. They call it in short, and our view is, regardless of the price, it should be fair and remunerative for us to produce. If the price is less or lower than the cost of producing rubber, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to produce rubber. Why would I produce rubber when the cost is higher than the price or the money that I'm getting? Yeah. So that relates to SPM. Yep, from Côte d'Ivoire.
Hi. I have a question regarding your stats. You said there is a shortage of NR production. I was wondering whether you were talking about block rubber, or you were talking about natural rubber like Kaplan, because there is a general feeling in the market that we are overproducing natural rubber Kaplan, but I don't know what
I'm not
if-
sure. Yeah,
if,
I'm not sure if I mentioned anything about shortage, but whenever I touch on rubber, it's always natural rubber in general, not just Kaplam or latex or technically specified natural rubber.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Please.
Hi, I'm Fazli from Malaysian Rubber Board. I would like to have more views from you regarding about proposing more fair prices, like you mentioned. And what is the role by IRCO? Because you explained that from your case study, Malaysia actually declining, right, the productions. But I think that's not the same case with Thailand and Indonesia, because if you see in the global trend today, Thailand and Indonesia remains like first and second spot, right, in the producing rubber, while Malaysia keep declining. I think it's the 7th place right now. So when you mention about fair prices, what exactly is your view or your initiative to make sure that Malaysian farmers would be getting that fair price as well? And you also propose that the price should be coming from the farmer themselves when they're producing the raw rubber. But when we talk about rubber at the, let's say, standard Malaysian rubber, so actually it's for the processed product, right? So how actually IRCO views on farmers can actually propose their own price? Yeah, just more explanation for that. Thank you.
I actually cannot recall your first statement just now. Anyway, okay. The farmers' involvement in rubber pricing should come from respective member countries, right? It's domestic from policies. So what I take the example of Malaysia, they have done a very well job in implementing my role and PATG, where they organize all these transaction online. It could be real time, they get data, and then they know who's authorized to sell, who's authorized to buy. And then through cooperatives, that's a good example of how Thailand is doing it. They establish cooperatives, and then with this cooperative, farmers will learn from each other to make sure the rubber that they produce is of high quality. And with high quality rubber, of course, they can demand for better prices. And we have Central Rubber Market in Thailand. I think they have 9 now. The main one is in Hat Yai in the south. And through this market, even though 5% of rubber in Thailand go through this market, but they're able to sort of discover the price reference to be used throughout the country. Yeah. So all this come from farmers. Yeah. But of course, we need to do more to make sure that farmers continue to be involved in this pricing discovery. Okay, you mentioned about fair prices just now. I remember now. When we say fair prices, I always mention fair prices to all stakeholders, particularly when it's fair for the downstream sectors, the buyers. But for the upstream, it's remunerative, the sellers. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasil. Okay, I think now we have to end here. I just would like to make one quick comment on what you just, on what I heard from you. I think I would suggest you to change the word price with the word income, because it's very different. Now, over time and over many years, now, we have seen attempts to control the price, to change the price, to set the price, but all attempts failed. Now, the issue is to provide to smallholder not a fair price, that means nothing, but a fair income that is consistent, whatever is the level of price. And that is what we have to work towards. Because if we think that we can control the price, we are heading towards a false objective, because that is not our objective. The objective is to provide to smallholder an income that is stable over time. And in doing this, we have to abandon the idea that this can be done by one side, producing countries, and no, the others are staying there just waiting for something happening. Now, these issues about sustainability, income, and all these topics should be addressed collectively, putting aside whatever has been the past and working together to a really sustainable, whatever it means, the word sustainable, but for me, it means sustainable income for everyone in the value chain, including the farmers. But we have to work together. There is no other way out. No, thinking that NRPC can set a mechanism that others will accept is not realistic, as it is not realistic that the consumers set rules that the producing country should accept by default. No, this is not what should happen. What should happen is producers and consumers work together to make this rubber business, this rubber economy, inclusive and sustainable over time. So this is my thinking. I think we should work in this direction and put aside anything else because it doesn't work for anyone. So, so I think this is very important. Okay, so I would like to thank everyone that participated in this session and all the speakers, and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. Oh, you are from London.